Brian Griese here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Brian?
Good morning, Rich. Great to be with you.
Right back at you, man. That Monday night game, what do you take out of that one? The one that we just saw between the Rams and the Cardinals, Brian. What's portable that we can apply to the last month of the season, do you think? With that one?
I think coming into the game, obviously what Sean McVay and the Rams were dealing with from the COVID standpoint of losing 5 starters for that game. Jalen Ramsey, Havenstein, the offensive lineman, Higbee, big contributors for the Rams, both sides of the football. And for them, honestly, coming into the game, I was trying to figure out what is the recipe? How are they going to win this football game on the road against an Arizona team which had been hot? And I felt like the response from the stars, from the Aaron Donalds, from the Von Miller, from Matthew Stafford, and what they were able to do with Cooper Kupp throughout the course of the game, I think that this Rams team, which everybody was talking so much about, Super Bowl or bust, all in, OBJ, Von Miller, bring all the individual stars, and they were a collection of individual players, Hall of Fame type players, but they really needed to find a way to play as a team. And that was the theme for us throughout the course of the game, was watching them play as a team. Complementary football, the things that aren't sexy, situational football. And they won that game because of those reasons. Conversely, the Arizona Cardinals were not good in situational football and managing the clock late and making the plays that they needed to make and turning the football over. So taking from that game, Rich, is the Rams are going to be there at the end. They're going to be in the hunt for the NFC West potentially, but certainly for the wild card. And if they get in and Matthew Stafford continues to play at a high level and Sony Michel continues to play at a high level and they get Darrell Henderson back and they establish that physical run game and play action, maybe they can compete in the NFC. That's what I took away.
Yeah, and then my question is how sustainable is that for the Rams? And I think it is. And the guy who I think that makes it sustainable is Sony Michel. And I know you were talking about it during the broadcast about the running and his ability to give the offense what they need, not just in yards and staying on schedule, but also the play action, everything that comes out of that. I asked that of Andrew Whitworth yesterday, and he agreed that he kind of gives them what C.J. Anderson did in their Super Bowl season of a few years ago, Brian.
Yeah, and an attitude. Rich, right? I mean, he came from New England. He understands how to play the game. He has been coached well, and he understands how a physical run game can impact a team. And I think that, they lost Robert Woods about a month ago, and he was not just a great receiver, but he was the dog on that offense. He was the competitive nature. He would not back down from anybody. He's the guy you want in the alley in a fight.
Right.
And they lost more than just a great wide receiver with Robert Woods. They lost an attitude and a competitiveness. And it's taken them a while to kind of get back. And I think Sony Michel brings a little bit of that. And if nothing else, to have that attitude in the huddle, that belief, and obviously he's a physical player, but I think that they were missing that. And, the offensive line has gotten better. They won on Monday night without 2 starters on the offensive line. They lost, one of their best playmakers, and Tyler Higbee wasn't there, and they needed to rise up and to respond with their backs against the wall. And Sony Michel brought that attitude, I thought.
Brian Griese here on the Rich Eisen Show. And then you saw Patriots and Bills the week before. I mean, what a crazy game that was. Wild, to say the least. So you're the perfect person to ask about this, about what to make of the Bills in their last 4 weeks of the season. What ails them? What do you think needs to be fixed? Even though their last quarter and a half in Tampa might have shown that they did finally catch a stride that they could ride, no doubt, to the playoffs. But what do you think is the missing ingredient from this year's team that was maybe there last year? What do you got for me there?
Yeah, I think, Rich, I think that we get, those of us that cover the NFL on a week-in and week-out basis, I think sometimes we get so caught up on a week-to-week, and we try to find what a team is or the definition of a team on a week in and week out basis. Like this week, the Arizona Cardinals are dead, right? They got There's something wrong with them, you know. They're 10-3. You know, we did that with the Rams, and I think now we're experiencing that with the Buffalo Bills. And so I listen. What happened in Orchard Park against the New England Patriots, to me, that was an outlier. That game was completely different. The elements. I mean, standing on that field before the game, and I'm sitting there talking to Josh Allen, and the guy with the strongest arm in the National Football League, and I'm like, "Hey, bud, where can you throw it?" He's like, "Well, I really can only throw it to this southeast corner because everything else is moving." And I'm like, "Bud, you got the strongest arm in the league. You're telling me that's the only place you're comfortable throwing it?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, I got it." I think that the weather mitigated what the Bills do well in that game, and it accentuated what the Patriots do well. And I think that's why they won that game.
Okay.
But in a dome, you know, that game could have come out completely different. Then they have to follow up against the Buccaneers, who, you know, I think is one of the hottest teams in the league, and they listen. They could have easily won that game. I loved what they did in the second half. And you're not going to play 4 quarters of perfect, pristine football all the time. But do you have what it takes in the end, in the second half, the fourth quarter? Does your star in Josh Allen make the plays that he needs to make to win the game? And I felt like Josh Allen did that, laid it out all on the line, and they can move forward from that. And they just made the mistake of giving, you know, the best ever, you know, one more opportunity. But I'm not down on the Bills. I think that they're going to regroup. I think that they have what they need. They have everything they need to compete in the playoffs, and we'll see if they can use these last couple of weeks as a rallying cry.
Now, you know, and so who do you take in the AFC? And I'm looking at the list here. You've had the Ravens a couple of times, and you had them when, you know, they were playing their best football all year. You had the Titans and Bills in Week 6. You saw the Chiefs against the Giants in Week 8. That was when they were beginning to make that turnaround defensively, and I know people were passing it off. It was just the Giants, but we've seen since then not an outlier. You had the Chargers beat the Raiders. That was so long ago. Gruden was the coach. So, you know, you put it all together. Who are you putting your marker on in the AFC, Brian Griese, entering Week 15? What do you got for me here?
I think you got to look at the teams that are playing the best, maybe who are not the best teams or the best rosters, but who's playing the best football. And right now, it's the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs are playing the best football. And in the case, we know about the Patriots. Okay, we understand what's going on there, and with a rookie quarterback, and when you get to the playoffs, you know, everything's different, and we don't know what we're going to get from a rookie quarterback. We know what we're going to get from 99% of the rest of that roster and that coaching staff and that team. We understand that, but there is that outlying question. With the Chiefs, you know, defensively, what they have been able to do, and I know Chris Jones get a little bit nicked up. But I think what they've been able to do, and I give credit to Steve Spagnuolo, this is not the first time he's done this.
Right.
Where he's gotten that defense to play their best when it requires their best towards the end of the season and into the playoffs. So certainly I think the Chiefs are right there. I'm concerned about Baltimore on a number of levels and what's going on there. Tennessee, I'm concerned about. In fact, you know, that division, you look at who's playing the best, you could argue it's the Indianapolis Colts and what they're doing right now. And I think that's a team to keep an eye out for. You mentioned the Chargers. I'm fired up about tomorrow night. I think what a great opportunity for that team and for Justin Herbert, who I think is playing some of his best football. So there's a lot of teams there, Rich.
Yep.
I understand that. I think that probably the division with the most problems is the North, is the AFC North, and I can't put a finger on who's going to come out because I don't think that any of those teams are playing well right now.
Brian Griese here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's do this for the NFC too. You know, you had the Packers back in Week 2. I mean, that was when Rodgers apparently didn't care about football because he got blown out in Week 1 against New Orleans, and then we've seen differently. You saw the Bucs against the Giants Week 11. Cowboys Week 3 against the Eagles. That's so long ago. So what do you got? I mean, who do you have for me right now in the NFC? You've seen a few of these teams in person, but now that you're watching them play right now, what do you got for me when it all comes down going into Week 15 on that front, Brian?
Yeah, I think it starts with the two OGs, the two guys that are in the MVP race. There's no question about that. I think you know what you're going to get from the Packers and the Bucks, and so I think those two are a given. I think there's a lot of questions about the Cardinals. I'm not giving up on the Cardinals, but just watching them in person Monday night, there are some issues that they have, I think, in their confidence level in the second half of games and finishing games and playing situational football and Kyler Murray protecting the ball. They are explosive, and they are good on the defensive end. They didn't play well in the secondary on Monday night, which I was hoping and anticipating them to play well under Vance Joseph, but they didn't. I'm a big fan of Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker, Marco Wilson, and I think they'll bounce back. So I think that they'll win the West. I think that the Rams will have a chance, like I said. The 49ers are a team that are scary, that is just so physical. And I think they find a way to sneak in. And I know there's no team in the NFC that wants to face that run game.
I agree.
And as their defense continues to get better, George Kittle is so hot right now. So I think that's a team that's going to be there. And then, so everybody wants to know about the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm a little concerned about what I've seen from Dak Prescott. I believe that he has what it takes to take this team deep into the playoffs, but he's got to play better. And they got to play better around him. And thankfully for him, Michael Parsons and his defense
incredible
has been playing lights out. It's been really fun to watch them. We have a flex in week 18 on Monday night. We'll have a doubleheader on Saturday. I'm hopeful maybe we get Dallas or maybe San Francisco. I know they play the Rams. That'll be a big game in week 18. But it's going to come down to the very end. You know that, Rich.
Yeah, I know that. That's for sure. Brian Griese here on the Rich Eisen Show. With the time I'll have left for you here, what was Brady like in the quarterback room in 1997 for Michigan in that national championship year that you quarterbacked? What was he like back in that day, Brian?
Well, he had long hair, Rich.
So did I, Brian. So did I.
Yeah, his hairstyle was not great back then. He's definitely got that in shape now. He was a joy to be around. He was a sponge, like you would imagine. He was a sponge. He wanted to absorb everything he possibly could. He was competitive. He wanted to be in my seat. He wanted my job, and we competed for that position, and we competed hard. And both of us had to wait our turn at Michigan. I think I was number 6 on the depth chart when I got there, and it was very similar for him. We had younger guys ahead of us on the depth chart. He had to go through the whole Drew Henson saga. I had a very similar situation with Scott Dreisbach. So we were hardened by those experiences, and then we identified with each other because of that, because we had to fight and scratch and claw for every opportunity we got at Michigan. And I was so happy when he got his chance and watched him play. And I'm fired up, Rich, to watch the Orange Bowl, this Georgia game.
Tell me about it.
I'm really excited and happy for those seniors. The Aiden Hutchinsons and Cade McNamara and Haskins that came back, that they finally got the Big Ten championship. They finally got the Ohio State monkey off their back, and I'm so excited to watch that game against Georgia. And proud of the alma mater. Josh Gaddis, winning the Broyles, and Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator. Mike McDonald, Rich.
Yes, sir.
Is a alumnus of Georgia. He was there as a coach as well from 2010 to 13. So, he's going to have something cooked up. I'm excited to watch those guys play.
Yeah, and you could say Cade McNamara is kind of like he had Milton in front of him. It was last year. It was kind of like, okay, let's try Cade, right? You know what I mean? Let's give him a whirl. And now what he's done this year, also, I'm not saying McCarthy's like Drew Henson, right? But he's got to come off the field every now and then, and the other kid gets reps, and that can't be easy. And there are some similarities here. All I'm saying is Michigan's going to win it all. That's what I'm saying, Brian. And I'm living my best life. And this is amazing. This is awesome. It's just been so great, honestly.
Well, I'm fired up for you that you finally have something to crow about and talk about.
By the way, I don't know if you've been aware, crow I don't think does justice what I have been doing here. My guys here are shaking their heads on their set. They're honestly,
Brian, if you haven't seen any of the videos, it's much more than crowing.
Oh my God, I wrote so many checks after Ohio State. It was so great. It was so great.
Good for you. Listen, all of the Michigan alumni have your back, Rich. You go right ahead.
Yes, Brian Griese. That's a national champion saying that to me.
True that.
Fantastic. And I love watching what you're doing too, Brian. Thanks for the time. Let's chat down the road. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, guys.
You bet. That's Brian Griese, everybody. Check him and Leaves and Louis Riddick. Monday Night Football. Vikings-Bears. Big game for the Vikings. Big game for the Vikings. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.